is a very famous parsha of sending out the spies. I'm going to tell you what the Malbim says. Now, not everybody agrees with the Malbim, but as usual, the Malbim has, I think, very strong indications from the verses, which support his point of view, and I'm really interested in what you can see in the verses, not what you'd have to bring from someplace else. There's a lot to learn about what the incident is about and what the lessons are in the incident. So, first of all, I want to read you through the basic incident. Keep in mind, let's see if you can figure out, what is the purpose of sending these spies? What's the purpose? Let's read through it. Yes. Let's read through it. So some of the words will be relevant. Some of the Hebrew, which I'll fill in later, is also relevant. Moses spoke to Moses, saying, "Send forth men, if you please, and let them spy out the land of Canaan that I give to the children of Israel. 1 man each from his father's tribe shall you send, every one a leader among them." Moses sent them forth from the wilderness of Paran at Hashem's command. They were all distinguished men, heads of the children of Israel were they. These are their names. Now you get the whole list of names, which I'm not going to go through. 16. These are the names of the men whom Moses sent to spy out the land. Moses called to Hoshea, son of Nun, because that's the name that's given in the list, 799. Hoshea, son of Nun, he called to him Joshua, whatever that means. Moses sent them to spy out the land of Canaan. He said to them, "Ascend here in the south and climb the mountains. See the land. How is it? And the people that dwells in it. Is it strong or weak? Is it few or numerous? And how is the land in which it dwells? Is it good or bad? And how are the cities in which it dwells? Are they open or are they fortified? And how is the land? Is it fertile or is it lean? Are there trees in it or not? You shall strengthen yourselves and take from the fruit of the land." These were the season of the first ripe grapes. What do you hear in this description was the purpose of sending the spies? What's the purpose? See how beautiful, and all of the instructions that Moses gave to them obviously served that purpose?
And how good it's going to be for them. See
how beautiful, how good it is. All of his instructions serve that purpose? How about whether the people are strong or weak, whether the cities are fortified or not?
Yes. Well, the people. Okay, so those might sound like, well, the people strong or weak, you can say the people that are eating from that portion of the land become strong from eating that portion of the land, and so will you. And the fortified city, at a loss, but maybe you have fortified cities. So, I don't know.
Okay. So you're taking a position, which, in fact, the Malbim takes, that this assignment is not a military assignment. It is not a military assignment. The purpose of this exercise is not to discover where the enemy is weak or strong. 799. Weak or strong, and where it's good to attack, and what kind of response you should expect. It is to evaluate the land. Let's look at the instructions, and I'm going to use some of the ideas that you mentioned back in 799. 17. Ascend here in the south and climb the mountain. See the land. How is it? The land. That's very vague. He says it several times. And the people that dwells in it is strong or weak. Now, you might think that that's a military evaluation. You're going in to conquer the land. It could be military. But it doesn't have to be military. As he says, what kind of people grow on this land? Is the land have enough nourishment? Does it have temperate enough weather? Does it afford room for physical activity that makes people strong or weak. Is if you are numerous, do people multiply here? Maybe there's too little food to feed people and they starve to death, and the population is strictly limited. And how is the land in which it dwells, is it good or bad? That does not sound like a military instruction. The cities in which it dwells, are they open or are they fortified? That can be an index of the confidence of the people who live in it, which again is an indication of their strength. You only build fortifications around your city if you're afraid of attack, and you're afraid that you can't simply defeat the other side in battle. So you want to have walls to protect you. There is, I think, a very naive type of argument that is made quite widespreadly in the Kiruv world to show that the Torah is written by God. Look at commandments which would be foolish, self-defeating ideas if they were created by people. So God, who could order something foolish and self-defeating, it must be God who did it. But as human beings wouldn't do that. And one of them is Aliyah L'Regel. 3 times a year, the whole male population leaves its residences and comes to Jerusalem. And the critique is, well, then anybody can attack. So obviously, no human being would make up a law like that. Only God would make up a law like that. I hear you. Let me ask you a question. Why are there no fortifications on the border between the United States and Canada? Aren't the Americans afraid the Canadians are going to attack? No, actually they're not, because the Canadians are non-players. I mean, all 22 million of them. You can leave your borders unfortified if the other side is frightened to death of your retaliation. Then you don't need to worry that they're going to attack. Because when you come back, you'll adopt a scorched earth policy and wipe them out. So here too, if they're fortifying the cities, it means their own strength is minimal, and that's why they have to build walls to protect them. If they're open, then they're more confident. How is the land, fertile or lean? That doesn't sound like a military instruction. Are there trees in it? That doesn't sound like a military instruction. And you shall strengthen yourselves to take back from the fruit of the land. How would that apply to military spies who are supposed to give you a strategy for conquering the land? Bring back, grapes and pomegranates and so forth and so on. On the contrary, the majority of the instructions sound like they are for the sake of evaluating the land. And the couple that could have sounded like military can be interpreted as evaluation. Now, let me show you how the Malbim really proves this. Go back to the beginning of the passage. Who are these people that are being sent? One from each tribe. Leaders of the tribes. Distinguished people in each tribe. Why is that? What has that got to do with a military operation? When Joshua, who actually conquers the land of Israel, sends out spies, he sends out 2 spies. Presumably people who knew how to make military evaluations, and 2 rather than 12, not to attract attention. For a military spying mission, there's absolutely no reason whatsoever to send out 1 leader of each tribe, each one a respected man in his tribe. What for? Furthermore, as the Malbim points out, the word to spy here is one of 3 Hebrew words for that purpose, and it never is used in military operations. This is latur, with a tough. A spy for military operations is a meragel. Jonathan Pollard is a meragel. And as the Malbim points out, latur in Hebrew, with a tough, means to evaluate. And I will show you something of which I'm not sure you're aware. What is the very end of this parsha in the Torah? What's the very last element in this parsha in the Torah?
It's the last Vayomer Shema.
On 8:17, the last paragraph in this parsha is the paragraph of Tzitzis. And in the paragraph of Tzitzis, it says, the very bottom line on 8:17, and not explore after your heart. In the Hebrew, if you look in the Hebrew, 2 lines from the bottom, second line from the bottom, last 3 words, velo sasuru achrei levavchem. That's the same verb, latur, with a tough. So it's the link in vocabulary to the beginning of the parsha, which speaks of the spies, who are the tarim, esoretz, to los asuru, and it's telling you that the parsha tzitzis, it means don't evaluate after your heart, just as it means in the beginning. That's where the Malbim learns. Okay? So they are sent on a evaluation mission. Now, that's why you have one from each tribe, a respected man, each a leader of the tribe. Because what you're investigating, among other things, is there a place for my tribe? The tribes are different. They have different strengths and weaknesses. They have different foci in what they want to accomplish, able to accomplish. So is there a place for me? I love the mountains, and I love hunting. I'm a farmer. I like fishing. Are there places to do these things? Will the land support varying lifestyles? So each one sends a representative of its tribe to see and evaluate, bring back a report whether it's appropriate for his group. Now you bring back fruits. Those are samples of what the land produces. All of that fits into a single coherent picture. Are we together? Okay. Now, let's see what they come back and say. And I'm skipping something which I'll come back to in Yitzhak Hashem. So they come back, and they bring back the fruit. 27. They reported to him, to Moses, and they said, we arrived in the land to which you sent us. And indeed, it flows with milk and honey, and this is its fruit. Skip the next word. I'll come back to it. The people that dwells on the land is powerful. The cities are greatly fortified. And we also saw there the offspring of the giant. Amalek dwells in the south. A Hittite, Jebusite, and Amorite dwell in the mountain. Canaanite dwells by the sea and the bank of the Jordan. That report, does it fulfill the purpose for which they were sent?
No.
Why not? Is there anything in that report which is outside the scope of the charge, where somebody should say, hey, stop, irrelevant, why are you putting that in? You're just offering, you're adding things that we didn't ask you to check out. Check the land, check the peoples that are on it. Are they strong, are they weak? They're adding information about their locus. You can read this as consistent with the instructions that were given. However, at the top of 803, in the very middle, is the word I skipped. But. Now in the Hebrew, this is a unique word. It's a word that's very, very, very rarely used. But in Hebrew is either aval or ella. This is ephes. Ephes means zero. Zero. So what they're saying is, and indeed it flows with milk and honey. This is its fruit, zero. Meaning, yes, it's beautiful, fruitful, wonderful, valuable land, but it's worth nothing to us. Worth nothing to us. Because the people is powerful, the cities are fortified, the children of the giants are there, and we'll never be able to conquer it. That one word, ephes, changes the character of what follows it into a military assessment. They were not sent to make a military assessment. They were sent only to make an assessment of the value of the land. That's what is the expression of the failure of their report. And the proof of it is, look what happens immediately upon their statement. 30, Gottlieb silenced the people toward Moses and said, we shall surely ascend and conquer it, for we can surely do it. Who's he talking to? What's he talking about? How did that get on the table? Because they said, ephes, it's worthless, because we can't conquer it. Gottlieb silenced them and said, no, you're wrong, we can't conquer it. And the men who ascended, let me just make sure the but isn't a fantasy of the translator. It is. The men who ascended with him said, we cannot ascend to that people, it's too strong for us. So you see what their initial statement implied and was intended to imply. It's impossible for us to conquer them. And that was not what they were sent to do. That's an indication of the initial failure that they made. Okay? Okay. Now there's something else. On 799, look at verse 8. For the tribe of Ephraim, Hoshea, son of Nun. 16, these are the names of the men Moses sent to Svanat Elohim. Moshe called to, in the Hebrew, Hoshea, son of Nun, Joshua. How are we supposed to understand this? Is this Moses renaming Hosea, giving him a new name? Is that what's going on here? The Hebrew doesn't sound like it, though some want to see possibly that it could be read that way. But there's a much worse problem. The worst problem is that in the Shalach, look at page 391. There is an attack. This is right after the exodus from Egypt, right after the parting of the sea. Amalek attacks the Jewish people. And verse 8 at the very bottom of the page, Amalek came and battled Israel and Rephidim. Moses said to Joshua, choose people, etc., go fight. Joshua who? Joshua Schwartz from down the street. Joshua was called Joshua on 799. That's way after the parting of the sea. So it's hard to say that on 799, Joshua was being given his name. One way out is what Rashi says, that...
Who's Joshua? Yeshua?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, well, I don't know what you mean. Joshua is Joshua. Yehoshua.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That was English name.
That's the, yeah, because the Yud in English is a J, for whatever reason. He's now calling to him to wish him well. Moses knows there's going to be a terrible challenge for the spies. And this is like an acronym saying God should save you. It's a play on his name, and he says God should save you. And the way to understand what happened over there in Bashalach is that he is Hosea. That's what he's called in verse 8 here. But he has a kind of nickname with an extra letter, Yud. Adding a letter of God's name to someone's name is something that happens often. Abraham had it when he became Avram to Avraham. There is a hey added to Joseph's name, Yehoseph, in one place. Here, they add a letter Yud to Hosea's name and call him Yeshua. But here it's especially relevant because Moses knows that he is going to be they're all going to be under pressure. Now, having said that, look on page 801. This is what I skipped before. So Moses sent them to go up and evaluate the land. 21. They ascended and spied out the land for the wilderness of sin. They ascended and spied out the land, wilderness of sin, spans Hamas. They ascended the south, and he arrived in Hebron, where they were, etc., the offspring. They arrived at the valley of Eshcol. They cut down for what? Right? They named the place. What pronoun sticks out like a sore thumb here?
They?
No.
So what? Pronoun.
Try to listen again. I read it as deadpan as possible so that you can't pick it up from my tone of voice. They ascended. And then a second time, they ascended. And he arrived at Hebron. They arrived. Right? They did, right? They named. It's all theys except for one. One is he. Obviously, this is describing what the 12 spies did, except for one thing. One thing is, he went to Hebron. That means one of them did, obviously. It's all theys except for that one. Who went to Hebron? Doesn't say, but it's Gottlieb. Later in the Tanakh, see, he gets a special gift of Hebron. Now, Gottlieb and Yoshua are the only two who survive the challenge. The other 10 become corrupt. Who is the star? Between Gottlieb and Yoshua, who is the star?
Yoshua.
Given what we read so far,
Totally.
when they make this wrong report, when they say that crucial word ephes, when they're projecting despair, it's Gottlieb who shuts them up. It's Gottlieb who says we can conquer it. Yeshua is silent. And you'll see that Gottlieb takes the lead. Of the two of them, Gottlieb plays the stronger role. If these two are the ones who succeeded in withstanding the pressure, I'll tell you what the pressure was in a few minutes, Mr. Hashem. And they were singled out, Joshua, by being given that address of the word Joshua, and Gottlieb going to Hebron, presumably that has something to do with it. So there is a very, I would say, ironical and somewhat bitter Hasidic story that there was a traveler from Eretz Israel who came to Poland to collect money, which happened very often. He came to the city of Gur, where the Ger Hasidim were, and Ger Rabbi talked to him privately, said, privately with his advisors, but not in public, and he said, how's life in Eretz Israel? How are people faring? What do they need? So so on. And then the Ger Rabbi asked this representative of Eretz Israel, why are there no Rebbes in Eretz Israel? No Rebbes, no Hasidic Rebbes. So this traveler said to him, if you will promise me that you will not respond, will not penalize me, punish me, I'll tell you the answer. So the Ger Rabbi promised him, and he said, remember the story of sending the spies? 2 of them survived. How did they survive? Moses prayed for Joshua. May Hashem save you. Joshua was Moses' disciple. He was his disciple. You could put it that Moses was his personal Rebbe. He took over for Moses in the end. Gottlieb went to Hebron. What's in Hebron? The patriarchs are buried in Hebron. The patriarchs are buried in Hebron. You don't need a Rebbe. You don't need a Rebbe. We live in Israel. We can go to Hebron, paid by the patriarchs. We don't need a Rebbe. Right? He didn't have it, so you guys live outside of the land of Israel. You need a Rebbe. There are no Rebbes in Israel because we don't need it. So I think it's But that's what he was doing. He went to Hebron. He wasn't sent to Hebron. They all went various places. The Torah only mentions where he went individually. He went to Hebron to pray there for help. And both of them were saved, and Gottlieb became the stronger of the two. So by that, I'm not recommending there shouldn't be Rebbes in Eretz Israel today. They definitely have to be remembered. We don't ourselves know how to access and connect to the patriarchs in such a way that it could substitute for that. But there is a very strong element here. Okay, we're together? Okay, now, watch what happens. This was what I read to you was the disagreement when they're talking to Moses. Back to 803. I'm not doing this in a continuous manner because I want to get the ideas in. So. 32. Up to 32 is the interaction of the 10 spies with Moses. 32, they brought forth to the children of Israel an evil report, the land they spied out, saying the land which we passed through to spy it out. It's a land that devours its inhabitants. What happened to milk and honey? No, now they're pushing full scale to kill the project. And the people of Sodom were huge. There we saw the Nephilim, the sons of the giant from among the Nephilim, whatever Nephilim are. We were like grasshoppers in our eyes, and so we were in their eyes. Now, this just requires 2 short comments. How would they know how they were in the eyes of the local inhabitants? How would they know the reaction of the local inhabitants? So here, the tradition says they overheard them talking, dismissing them as of no account. You know, pygmies. People who are trivial. But why are they adding, we're like grasshoppers on our own eyes? That means that when we looked at them, we felt intimidated, right? Some of the deeper commentators make a link between the two. You know why you were grasshoppers in their eyes? Because you perceived yourself that way, and you projected yourself as people without any self-confidence, without any hope, and that's why they perceived you that way. That's a very bitter, but I think psychologically and socially realistic appraisement. You will be perceived in terms of how you present yourself, and that's something which is important. Okay, so now this is the report that they gave to the assembly, chapter 14. The entire assembly raised up, issued its voice. People wept that night. All the children of Israel murmured against Moses and Aaron. entire assembly said to themselves, if only we had died in the land of Egypt, only we had died in the wilderness. Why is Hashem bringing us to this land to die by the sword? Our wives and young children will be taken captive. Is it not better for us to return to Egypt? So said to one another, let's appoint a leader and let's return to Egypt. Moses and Aaron fell on their faces before the entire congregation of the assembly of the children of Israel. Joshua, son of Nun, and Caleb, son of Jephunneh, the spies of the land, tore their garments. I heard from my Rabbi, and I think he took it from, also maybe from one of the Ger Rebbes, a very important idea here based on what it says in the Talmud. What's the difference between falling on your face and tearing your garments? Falling on your face is prostration, is a way in which you pray. That's the way in which you pray to God. Tearing your garments you do when the person has died. It's all over. Prayer can't help. It's over. So there's a fundamental difference of response here to this disaster. Caleb and Jephunneh give up. In a certain sense, I'll show you a moment that's not 100% true, but they give up. Moses and Aaron are praying. Who's right? The continuation shows that Caleb and Yeshua are right. And Moses and Aaron are wrong. Prayer won't do it. Prayer isn't going to save them. On this, they comment, there's a statement in the Talmud that the land of Israel, the air of the land of Israel makes one wise. Avira d'Eretz Israel machkim. And the question is raised, does that mean when you go to Israel and dwell there, you have an extra measure of wisdom? Or does it even include going there and dwelling there temporarily and then leaving? Do you retain that extra wisdom or do you not? Well, Joshua and Caleb went to the land of Israel for 40 days and came back, and interpreting this event, Joshua and Caleb are still superior to Moses and Aaron. That indicates that the extra measure of wisdom that you get in the land of Israel does not desert you when you leave the land of Israel. Now, of course, no one here is going back to America or Britain. You're all staying here. Messiah is coming, and nobody's going to have to go home. But if, in the odd, unexpected eventuality that the Messiah doesn't come, then you have to know that the time that you spent here has a positive effect that will last you when you go back. Now, having said all of that, look at the next verses.
Days?
Okay, you're here more than 40 days, so it's even better. Right? So Joshua and Caleb tore their clothes. 7, they spoke to the entire assembly of Israel, saying, the land that we passed through to spy out, the land is very good, something which the other spies omitted when they turned to the people. If Hashem desires us, he will bring us into this land and give it to us, a land that flows with milk and honey. It's not up to us. It's not our military ability that counts. All outcomes are due to God. But do not rebel against Hashem. You should not fear the people of the land, for they are our bread. Their protection is departed from them. Hashem is with us. Do not fear them. Now, given what I just told you, that Moses and Aaron made a mistake in thinking that prayer was relevant, and Joshua and Caleb said, it's over, but aren't they trying to recover here? Aren't they pleading with the people to go back on what they said, change their minds? The answer pretty obviously is, prayer can't save it. Prayer can't save it. But doing tshuva can save it. Almost always, if the people will change their minds and reform, that can take off what was decreed. Not always that true, but almost always is true. So they say to Moshe and Aaron, prayer's not it. Don't do that. We're wasting your time. Go to the people and try to plead with them to get them to change. And they themselves do that. But, of course, they're unsuccessful. And that's when the disaster takes place. God says, okay, then it's over. And they're going to die in the wilderness. And their children, their descendants, are going to go into the land of Israel. Okay? That's just some background on the story. Now, I want to take a look, since we looked at it at the very end, the last paragraph of the Shema. I mentioned to you in 39, where it says at the very bottom of the page, they write, explore I'm offering the translation evaluate, which I'm taking from the Malbim. Don't evaluate after your heart, after your eyes, after which you stray. Now, there is some question here about the order. Your heart and your eyes. And indeed, Rashi, who links the verbs, by the way, in his commentary, the Tur, he says the heart and the eyes are the brokers of, they're spies for the body, brokers for transgressions. The eye sees, the heart desires, and the body carries out the transgression. So Medrash Tanchuma. Trouble is that in the order of the verse, it's reversed. It's heart first and eyes second. Now, I think it was Moshe Pindris here who pointed out to me that sometimes in Hebrew, when you have A and B, it means A is caused by B. The cause comes second. That can be. So it could be consistent that way. Others point out that the relationship between heart and eyes is mutual. It's an interaction. Yes, if you don't see something, if you're not aware of something, then the idea of the heart desiring it and getting into trouble is not going to happen. But it's also true that the heart determines what the eye sees. As we well know, people can look at the same scene and you ask them what they remember or what they notice, and you get very different reports because of what they're interested in, because of what their sensitivities are. If Desta points out that if you have 10 people read a newspaper from cover to cover and ask them what they remember, you'll get different reports. Not because they'll disagree, but one will tell you every detail in the sports section. And when it comes to the stocks, was the Dow Jones up or down? I don't remember. Because he doesn't have any stocks, but he loves sports, and so forth and so on. The heart determines what the eye sees. And that being the case, the heart has an impact on the eyes, not just the other way around. That's an important thing to know about psychology. When the Baal Shem Tov died, the last thing, some of his close disciples said to him, Rebbe, you're leaving us. How will we know after you're gone whom to follow? How will we know who is a genuine Rebbe? And he said, ask him whether he knows the secret of controlling thoughts. And if he says yes, he's not a Rebbe. He's not a Rebbe. I take that to mean that absolute control of thought is something that's impossible.
It's healthy, no?
Healthy to control thought, or not to control?
Not to control.
Oh, well, let's see. But is any control possible? In some form you'll read, you can't control what things occur to you. Things occur to you out of the blue. What you have control of is what you do about it. Do you dwell on it? Do you sink yourself into it and analyze it? Or do you turn your attention to something else? But there is at least some sort of temporary protection. Imagine you're watching the last 2 minutes of the Super Bowl and imagine that you're a football fan, which I hope is not true, just an imagination. And imagine that one team is ahead by 2 points and the other team is pushing upfield, trying to get them in position to make a field goal, and so on and so on.
You know a lot about football.
Yeah, there was a time. Now, do you think that someone who starts a political discussion over in the corner is going to catch your attention? Mm-hmm. I doubt it. I think you're going to be plugged into the Super Bowl and political discussion. You won't even hear them. Mm-hmm. You won't even hear them. Suppose the air conditioner breaks and it starts to get hot in the room. You probably won't feel that because the drama, such as it is, on the screen is something that will just grip you. I can report to you a piece of history. It used to be that way when people read books. But, of course, nobody reads books anymore. Literature majors Google the book, and they get snips out of it in order to write their papers. Literature majors don't read books. And if literature majors don't read books, what is anybody else to say? Okay, now, when you will someday come to the point of learning Talmud on your own, with a study partner, with a chavrusa, you will experience the same thing. You will not be distracted by anything. Because he's reciting and explaining the passage. Your job is to shoot him down. You are a faithful study partner if you shoot him down. That's okay, because tomorrow you're going to read, he's going to shoot you down, right? That's how it goes. You are on your toes every moment, every nuance of his translation. You know, do you want to accept it, or do you want to force him to qualify it or retract it? Nothing disturbs you. You don't suddenly have your mind straight at politics. It doesn't happen. So now, if you fill your mind with something positive, you can close off the access so that nothing negative can get in. If your mind is drifting, if you're watching the scenery, if you're strolling down the path and admiring the sunshine, then indeed. So control of thought can be exercised by filling your mind with certain positive thoughts, and I would call that positive, not negative. I would not think that was a problem. Okay, so that's sort of focusing the heart, and then what you see won't have that effect. And I say these true with thoughts. I just want to point out one other thing here. It says here in verse 39, it shall constitute tzitzis for you that you may see it and remember all the commandments of Hashem and perform them, not evaluate after your heart and your eyes, after which you stray. 40, so that you remember and perform all my commandments to be holy to your God. Okay, don't we have remember and perform twice? Couldn't the text have been more economical by not repeating that? Why might it have to be repeated? So, one of the commentators, I forget who, makes, I think, an important observation here. 39 says, it shall constitute tzitzis for you that you may see it and remember all the commandments. Purpose of it is to be seen and thereby to jog your memory and to remember all the commandments. So now let's ask a Jewish type question. Do blind people have to put on tzitzis? No. The verse says, to see it and remember. A blind person can't see it. And by the way, does this mean, that's exactly what I was going to say. Does this mean that if you wear them under your clothes, you're not fulfilling the commandment? That's what 40 is doing. 40 is saying that you are commanded to remember it even if you can't see it. 40 tells you that blind people also are obligated. Seeing it to remember it is a virtue. It's good. It's the best way to perform the mitzvah. But the mitzvah applies to people who can't see it also. And that's why you can wear it inside where it doesn't have to be shown. It doesn't have to be shown.